Okay, welcome back everyone to Sip and Talk.
Great to be back.
So today we're doing a deep dive into something really critical in our totally wired world, countering information warfare.
Yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it? We've been looking at some fascinating material on how Ukraine has been dealing with Russia's massive info ops, especially since the big invasion.
Right, and, the key thing is what can other places facing similar stuff, like Taiwan with China, learn from all this?
Exactly. It's like getting a look at the front lines of this information battle. It shows how information is a weapon, definitely, but also how it can be a shield.
So our mission today, let's unpack the strategies, the tactics, what worked, what maybe didn't, and figure out what it means for you, just trying to make sense of the flood of info you see every day.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's unpack this. First up, the background. Russia's info war against Ukraine. This didn't start in 2022, did it?
Oh, no, not at all. Russia's been using information as a weapon against Ukraine for ages, really ramped up after 2014. Yeah. But yeah, it went into total overdrive with the full-scale invasion. The goal, always the same.
Yeah.
Weaken Ukraine from the inside, chip away at international support.
And they seem to have a pretty clear playbook, judging by what we've seen.
Absolutely. A key tactic, narrative control, big time. They refuse to call it a war. It's a special military operation.
Right.
And the reasons they give, things like protecting Russian speakers, or that totally baseless claim about needing to denazify Ukraine, it's faux framing, designed to completely hide the aggression.
Which is just such a stark contrast to the reality on the ground.
Exactly. And then there's just straight up false information, spreading lies about the Ukrainian government being a failed state, or that the Ukrainian army is killing civilians, or that actual Nazis are running the country.
Wow.
Yeah. The aim is to sow confusion, create divisions inside Ukraine, and make other countries think twice about supporting them.
It's psychological warfare, basically.
It absolutely is. Pure psychological warfare. They use everything, social media, state TV, cyber attacks, to create fear, uncertainty, confusion.
Like fake surrender reports?
Exactly. False claims Ukrainian troops gave up, or just flat out denying they're hitting civilian targets, even when the evidence is overwhelming. It's about messing with people's heads, disorienting everyone.
And controlling the information flow is key to that whole strategy.
Oh, massively. Media control is huge. Inside Russia, independent media gets blocked. Only the Kremlin story gets out. And then internationally, you've got platforms like RT pushing those same narratives around the world.
So when Ukraine comes out swinging with that statement, this is not a special military operation. Your army is killing our civilians.
Yeah.
That's like the first counterpunch, right?
It's incredibly powerful. It just slices right through Russia's fake reality with a simple, brutal truth. And Ukraine didn't just stop there. They rolled out this really layered approach, combining government efforts, civil society, international partners.
Okay, so what were the main parts of that counterattack?
Well, speed was everything. Rapid fact-checking and clarification. Organizations like StopFake, they actually started way back in 2014, have been absolutely vital, debunking thousands, literally thousands, of Russian lies.
Like that totally bizarre story about Ukraine putting Hitler's face on their money? Seriously?
Yeah, that one was pretty wild. But also tackling much, much more serious and dangerous disinformation. And the Ukrainian government itself, President Zelensky especially, used social media, Instagram, Telegram so effectively. Quick updates, direct addresses, sharing evidence.
Yeah, those videos he put out felt really raw and immediate. Very powerful.
They really were. Like the day after the invasion, Feb 25th, 2022. Zelensky was right there on social media, condemning the bombing of apartment buildings in Kiev, pointing out, look, they're hitting civilians.
And they backed it up.
Oh, yeah. The Interior Ministry was documenting attacks meticulously. They listed like 33 specific civilian sites hit early on, providing photos, videos. They weren't just saying you're lying. They were showing why they were lying. Here's the proof.
Showing the receipts, basically.
Exactly. Which leads right into the next piece, active narrative shaping. Ukraine wasn't just playing defense, batting away lies. They were building their own strong story.
Calling it aggression, focusing on the human cost.
Yes. Framing it clearly as aggression, highlighting the humanitarian crisis, the suffering of civilians. Zelensky constantly hammering that killing civilians point directly countered the whole denazification nonsense.
And using emotion.
Absolutely. Powerful emotional appeals, sharing real stories like messages from people trapped in Mariupol, showing those devastating images of bombed homes, making it real for people.
And making sure the world saw it.
Critically important. They pushed hard for international reach, translating info into like 13 languages through platforms like StopFake. They knew this wasn't just a fight within Ukraine. It was a global battle for perception.
Okay, Russia also hit them hard with cyber attacks. How did Ukraine fight back on the digital front?
They focused on digital and cyber defense, but they also went on offense. They'd actually been cleaning house for years, blocking dozens of Russian TV channels after 2014, limiting some Russian social media news sites in 2017.
Cutting off the propaganda pipelines.
Right. And then, famously, the Minister of Digital Transformation, Fedorov, basically put out a global call for hackers, creating the Ukrainian IT army.
Wow.
Yeah. And groups like Anonymous jumped in, hitting Russian government sites, sometimes even replacing the content with Ukrainian patriotic songs or messages. And you absolutely cannot forget the role of Starlink.
Elon Musk's satellites.
Yeah, SpaceX's satellite internet. It was a game changer, keeping communication lines open when Russia was bombing infrastructure or trying to cut off the internet. Super critical.
So digital offense and defense lockdown. What about regular people? What role did citizens play?
Oh, a massive role. Citizen participation and social unity were huge pillars. Ordinary Ukrainians became citizen journalists, basically, sharing photos, videos, firsthand accounts of what Russia was doing, especially on platforms like Telegram. Those messages from Mariupol were devastatingly effective.
And the invasion itself must have unified people.
Incredibly so. That shared threat created this intense national unity, which really undercut any pro-Russian voices left inside the country. Unity became a powerful shield against division tactics.
Makes sense.
And they also really leaned into cultural resistance, emphasizing Ukraine's unique history, language, culture, directly pushing back against Putin's narrative that Ukraine isn't a real country or is just historically part of Russia. Zelensky often brought up Kiev Rus's history to highlight that long independence.
Smart. How did they weave diplomacy into this info war?
Very skillfully. They used international alliances and diplomatic pressure, going to the UN, the EU, showing the evidence directly, pushing for sanctions, Zelensky's speeches to various parliaments, showing videos at the UN, incredibly impactful.
Yeah, those were powerful moments.
And they worked with other countries on fact-checking. We saw reports saying hundreds of pieces of Russian disinformation were debunked on day one of the invasion by joint efforts. That shows pre-existing cooperation. They even tried putting pressure on countries like China, though, that's been tougher.
Okay, now this link between actual fighting and the information war, that seems like a really key insight here.
It is, and it raises that big question. How did military actions become, like, tools in the information space? A really striking example is that spiderweb drone attack in June 2025.
Tell me about that.
Ukraine apparently used over 100 drones to hit a Russian airbase deep in occupied territory. Reports said they destroyed a lot of valuable aircraft, maybe billions of dollars worth. And Zelensky publicly praised the operation.
So it's not just we blew stuff up. It's a message.
Exactly. It's got that dual impact. It's a real military setback for Russia, and it's a massive win in the info war. It shows Ukraine's clever, capable, it boosts morale at home like crazy, and it tells international partners, hey, we can really hit back.
And the psychological aspect, too.
For sure. Things like reports of smuggling drones into Russia, that whole Trojan horse idea, it gets reported widely and chips away at that image of Russian invincibility.
That is a remarkably comprehensive strategy, but it couldn't have been easy. What were the big hurdles Ukraine faced?
Oh, incredibly tough.
Right.
First off, the huge resource gap. Russia just has vastly more money and a global media machine like RT Ukraine's info efforts, while Smart are working with less.
And a long war takes its toll, right?
Absolutely. Domestic fatigue is real. People get worn down. The material mentions some controversy around a big proposed draft of 500,000 people. Things like that can test unity over time. And international divisions are still there. Countries like China playing it ambiguous. That complicates things.
And Russia's still trying to get inside Ukraine's info space.
Constantly. Infiltration is a major headache. Russia uses agents, sympathizers, sets up fake websites that look like real Ukrainian news sites to spread division. And look, there are tough moral dilemmas. Well, the sources mentioned maybe sometimes Ukraine exaggerated battlefield successes, like the whole Ghost of Kyiv legend early on, boosts morale like crazy in the moment, right? But long term, if you get caught exaggerating, it could damage your credibility. It's a fine line.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Taking all this, the wins, the struggles, the whole Ukrainian playbook, what does it mean for other places under similar pressure?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Taiwan is a prime example. They live under constant cognitive warfare from China.
Yeah, usually framed as just anti-Taiwan independence or something righteous.
Exactly. It's classic framing to mask the real aggression. And what's fascinating is you see so many parallels in the tactics China uses compared to Russia, even if the specifics differ. Taiwan can definitely learn a lot here.
So how could Taiwan take Ukraine's strategies and, adapt them?
Well, you can apply that same multi-layer approach. First, fast fact-checking and transparency. They need robust platforms, maybe boosting groups like the Taiwan Fact Check Center, the TFC, using social media in multiple languages to blast out hard evidence of China's actions, ADIZ incursions, economic bullying like blocking fruit imports.
Show the world what's really going on behind the slogans.
Precisely. Expose the aggressive intent beneath the anti-independence talk. Point to things like China's own 2022 white paper, where they dropped the promise about not sending troops to Taiwan. That's factual evidence of their shifting stance.
And should they lean into the narrative that they are the target, like Ukraine did?
Yeah, an acted victim narrative, but framed as a democracy under threat. Clearly communicate. China's actions threaten 23 million people's freedom and way of life. Use specific examples, like China blocking Taiwan from getting COVID vaccines back in 2021. Use international stages, the UN, APEC, even when China tries to shut them out to tell Taiwan's story. We're a democracy under attack. Challenge the one China principle narrative head on.
What about the digital battleground? China's a huge player there.
Yeah, digital and cyber defense is paramount. Beefing up defenses against sophisticated attacks, like those government website hits in 2023. They have to figure out how to handle platforms like TikTok. It's tricky, balancing the risk of manipulation with free speech rights. Partnering with international tech firms, maybe SpaceX again, or Google for resilient communications is smart. And getting citizens involved, like those CUM Academy courses teaching people about cognitive warfare.
That citizen angle seems crucial, echoing Ukraine.
It really is. Citizen participation and unity, promote media literacy widely, again like CUM Academy, help people spot fake narratives, Taiwan has no friends, voting for DPP means war, encourage civil defense training, build resilience. The stat about 75% feeling obligated to defend their home is powerful. Even things like economically supporting islands like Kinmen to reduce their reliance on China and vulnerability to influence ops.
And building international partnerships.
Vital. International cooperation and diplomatic countermeasures. Form alliances specifically to counter cognitive warfare with the U.S., Japan, Australia. Share intel, share examples of Chinese manipulation tactics, like accusing Taiwan of colluding with the U.S. Learn from other countries China targets, like India or Australia. And constantly highlight Taiwan's value as a democratic success story.
And the military piece, how does that fit in?
Military and information integration. Just like Ukraine. Publicize Taiwan's porcupine strategy, those anti-ship missiles, drones, to show they're not helpless, they're determined. When China sends 125 warplanes in a day, publicize that, but pair it with videos showing Taiwan's own military readiness. Counter the lie that Taiwan can't resist.
So it's about a holistic approach, not just defense, but actively pushing back and shaping the story. What specific things can Taiwan do to dismantle China's narratives?
Okay, number one. Expose the aggression behind the anti-independence label. Use those concrete examples. Vaccine blocking, military flights show it's not peaceful, it's coercion.
Use the victim angle internationally.
Yes, but frame it as democracy under siege. Appeal to shared values. Highlight specific interference attempts messing with the 2024 election, blocking WHO participation. Make it tangible.
And what about reaching people inside Taiwan who might be on the fence?
Super important. Target those neutral or maybe skeptical segments of the public. Counter specific lies like Taiwan has no allies or surrender is the safe option. Use education, like CUM Academy, to debunk talking points like both sides are one family, when China's actions scream otherwise.
Can they turn China's own weaknesses against them?
Absolutely. Point out China's internal issues, the economy slowing down, youth unemployment being sky high. Undermine the CCP's whole national rejuvenation story, show their system has serious flaws, highlight Taiwan's strength, its critical role in global tech, especially chips, and share examples of dissent within China, like the A4 protests, to break the illusion of total CCP control.
And finally, reinforcing their own identity.
Foundational. Keep promoting democratic values and Taiwanese identity. Over 60% already identify primarily as Taiwanese. Promote local culture to counter China's attempts at cultural influence, like those reports about trying to co-opt religious groups.
It sounds like a solid plan, but Taiwan faces huge challenges too, right? Similar to Ukraine's.
Oh, definitely. There's that massive resource and tech gap, China's propaganda budget and AI capabilities are enormous. Internal political divisions in Taiwan are a vulnerability China loves to exploit, pushing that war versus peace narrative during elections.
And international support isn't always guaranteed.
Right. The uncertainty of international support is always there, especially with China pushing narratives like the U.S. is provoking us. And the really tricky part, how do you fight disinformation without becoming authoritarian yourself? Avoiding witch hunts or overly broad regulations that stifle free speech and erode public trust, that's a crucial balancing act for any democracy.
Okay, let's talk about a specific case that really brings these tactics, and especially the contradictions, to life.
Yeah, the example of this Taiwanese influencer, Kongwen. This guy was known for being super outspoken against the CCP. Really harsh criticisms of Xi Jinping, human rights, you name it.
Yeah, I remember he didn't hold back.
Not at all. Used language that, frankly, would probably land him in jail in China. Then, seemingly out of nowhere in 2025, he announces he's going to China as a peace ambassador, starts criticizing Taiwan's government, says he'll show Taiwanese people the truth about China.
Whoa, quite the U-turn. How did China respond?
Reports say China's State Council welcomed him with open arms, which perfectly shows their strategy, right? Find individuals, maybe offer some incentives. The material hints he had some business troubles after joining an anti-China media movement, so maybe there was pressure or an opportunity.
Okay, but the contradictions here, they seem huge.
Oh, they're glaring. First, just the inconsistent stance. How do you go from insulting the leader and the system, potentially breaking their laws, to being embraced as a peace envoy? And China conveniently ignores all his past comments. It shows they'll overlook anything if it fits their propaganda needs.
And the idea of him showing China's truth.
It's absurd. Given China's iron grip on information, how can you show the truth when doctors get silenced for talking about viruses or YouTubers lose deals for mentioning Taiwan's president? He'd have to play by their rules, which totally contradicts his claim.
And didn't he used to criticize people for cozying up to China economically?
Exactly. He criticized others for sucking China's milk. But now his own shift looks potentially driven by business needs or seeking market access. It clashes completely with his old anti-red media image and China parading him as proof of free speech after unification. Please, just look at Hong Kong.
So he's potentially misleading his audience.
Well, the material suggests he's misleading the public, making vague claims about Taiwan's government brainwashing people while repeating stereotypes about China, ignoring their real economic problems like massive youth unemployment, and claiming to seek peace while ignoring China's constant military intimidation. It just doesn't add up if your goal is revealing truth.
And it seems disconnected from what the rest of the world sees in China.
Totally. His rosy picture flies in the face of things like the UN's Xinjiang report or research showing how platforms like TikTok might be influencing users in Taiwan. Whether he means to or not, he ends up being a megaphone for China's info ops.
So using those Ukrainian lessons, how could Taiwan counter this specific type of influencer narrative?
Apply the same principles. Fast fact-checking his claims, especially economic ones about China.
Call out the contradictions.
Yes. Reveal the contradictions publicly, maybe even use humor. Sometimes ridicule is effective against absurdity. Frame it using the victim narrative. Show how influencers could become tools in an aggression campaign against Taiwan's democracy.
What about the platforms they use?
Consider platform regulation carefully. If platforms like TikTok are shown to systematically push this stuff, that needs addressing. Maybe use AI to detect coordinated campaigns. But most importantly, boost citizen information literacy so people, especially fans of these influencers, can see the manipulation tactics themselves.
To keep working with other countries.
Yes. International cooperation helps expose this tactic of using seemingly independent voices globally. And always show Taiwan's military readiness to counter that underlying message of weakness or inevitable surrender that sometimes comes with these pro-China narratives.
You know, stepping back and looking at both Russia and China, the similarities in their information tactics are really striking.
They really are. A huge one is how both twist language, using words like justice or peace or liberation to cover up straight-up aggression. Russia's denazification, China's anti-independence. The material makes it clear these are just excuses for grabbing land or control.
And they both seem to blame the victim, right?
Oh, textbook victim blaming. Paint Ukraine as terrorists, paint Taiwan as provocateurs trying to start trouble. It's all about deflecting criticism, even though, as the sources show, Ukraine and Taiwan are mostly acting defensively.
And information manipulation is the weapon they both rely on heavily.
Fundamentally, Russia uses RT and state media. China uses state media, platforms like Douyin, and cultivates influencers. The goal is the same. Divide your opponents, confuse the issue, weaken international resolve.
The specific examples really drive it home. Russia bombing civilians while claiming they don't. China flying bombers around Taiwan while talking about peace.
Exactly. Both are aggressive actions wrapped in layers of denial and doublespeak. And that's why patiently unpacking those contradictions with cold, hard facts is such a powerful counter.
Wow. This has been a really insightful deep dive. So much to think about.
It really has. I mean, the bottom line, Ukraine's fight shows how a resilient, multi-pronged defense against information warfare can work, and it offers vital lessons. Taiwan can definitely adapt these, tailoring them to China's specific brand of cognitive warfare, which often uses that deceptive framing. In that influencer case, it just highlights how crucial it is to expose the contradictions and, frankly, the absurdities in propaganda using facts.
It really makes you realize information warfare isn't just government spy stuff. It's happening all around us, influencing how we see the world, how we see each other.
Which kind of leads to the big question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If winning the information war ultimately comes down to the speed of truth and the strength of public trust, how do you, listening right now, make sure you're part of making truth travel faster and building that trust, not eroding it?
Yeah. So what does all this mean for you every time you scroll through your feed or share an article? Definitely something to think about. All right, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us here on Sip and Talk.
Always a pleasure.
And hey, definitely subscribe to Sip and Talk wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel. Seriously funny stuff over there. You should really go take a look.
Yeah, don't miss out. Until next time.
这样的问题，我这几天都在聊。根据我的了解，中国根本不禁止翻墙。长期以来，台湾网络都在说他们是要翻墙禁止，他们只是要多付一个叫 VPN 的费用，甚至有整间公司帮所有员工去申请这个东西。也就是说，你说中国人、大陆人他看不清楚这个世界，他们只听他们的，没有，他们这个资讯是很广泛，对，所以不会被封。因为很多人觉得拍片，甚至也有问两岸的问题啊，那怎么都没有人被封，影片也没有被下架。